gonna have
I'm in a weird mood, you guys.
I like it.
I don't know what could
I'm here
happen.
for it.
So, welcome, Michael Massey.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm phenomenal. How are you?
I'm really good.
Good.
Yeah, better now.
Yeah.
Slow morning.
Really?
Yeah, I felt slow. But
I think you're over-caffeinated. I think that's actually what happened
That
today.
I
could
could
be
be.
it.
Yeah.
I could be.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get some clarity today for Bobby
Love it.
on
I'm
Generation
excited.
Build.
Yeah.
So, let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
What is Generation Build? Why did you start it?
I love that question. So Generation Build is the pro housing group in San Luis Obispo County.
Okay.
We started it about a year or so ago. It's when I got involved personally in the Dana Reserve Project. I went to their first, I've been involved with the Dana Reserve Project since their first environmental.
Can you explain what that
impact.
is, too?
Okay, so the Dana Reserve Project is a proposed 1,400 home development in Napomo. It's much needed in Napomo. Napomo is an area where we are seeing incredible growth. They have, I believe, 2,000 plus units approved to be built over the next 2 to 3 years. But this one is the largest housing project in county land, not just city, because Napomo falls in the county jurisdiction, ever proposed.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I got involved in that first about 4 years ago.
Why?
So the Tompkins are good family friends of mine. So
Okay.
full disclosure of that, they're like, hey, hop on this Zoom call to where we're talking with the county. We're just talking about
And they're the
a little bit.
developers?
And they're the developers,
Yeah.
yes. And I went to the first planning commission meeting, the first of, I believe, 8 meetings. And I've never been to a planning commission meeting in my entire life. I've never been to a city council meeting in my entire life, nothing like that. So I went to it, and there was about 50 people there who wore matching green shirts, who were vocally opposed to the project. And I thought to myself, wow, that's crazy. Why would anyone be opposed to a housing project? I was very ignorant to the entire process. And to hear all of them give public comment for some reasons that I found reasonable, very few though, and then rest were just, we don't want these homes here. They don't need to be here, this and that. And I fall in the generation that we're struggling the most with housing throughout the entire country. I believe the largest issue facing this country is the housing shortage. Politics in Washington, D.C., they don't talk about it. They really don't care about it. There are certain states on the left and the right that have put housing at their forefront. And there are states on the left and the right who could care less about housing. They make it as hard as possible to do that. So it's a bipartisan issue. NIMBYism, not in my backyard, people who are against development. There's a bipartisan group that's against it. And then there's the YIMBYs, which I am a proud YIMBY, a radical YIMBY, who is radicalized to build as much homes as possible. Because there are more people in this country. We are procreating. There's immigration. We need more homes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then you go to this Dana Reserve Project hearing, and as you were looking around the landscape, what made you think, I need to do something and I'm the guy to do it?
I thought that because no one else is doing it.
Really? That's surprising to me.
There are certain housing groups around
Right.
here, but they're just not that vocal. They
Okay.
don't really get, their hands in it and just do everything they can to get housing built. They just post some stuff on social media every now and then, and that's it. But they're not really organizing. And so I saw this group that was opposed to it, and then pretty much most NIMBYs, they are the loud minority. Like they are a minority, but they're very loud. If you go to any planning commission meeting, the people opposed are always going to be 2 to 1, 3 to 1 ratio speaking compared to the people who are there. Because most things that we support, we're not really that vocal about, and we just think, okay, it's going to happen. Of course they're going to build more housing. Of course we're going to see more development. But that's rarely the case. And so I'm like, someone needs to organize the silent majority to become the loud majority in this county to do everything they can to get development and housing built, because we need it. We need it drastically.
Yeah.
And economically, if we don't get it done, this county will be in a dire situation. Hate being dramatic, but we will be in a very, very tough spot.
We already are in a tough spot.
Yeah, it's
just
brutal.
getting worse. Yeah.
Yeah, and companies can't recruit decent talent here, decent doctors, nurses to come here due to the cost of living. And so I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to a few people. I'm going to get connected. I'm going to create an Instagram and a Facebook, and we're going to see what we can do. And so started it with that to be like, okay, we're going to be the vocal, take the Dana Reserve as our first pet project, and then we're going to carry that to fight and be vocal in city council meetings, planning commission meetings, board of supervisor meetings, to do everything we can to, where there is a development that is proposed, do everything we can to get a 5-0 vote.
What does that look like practically when you say you're going to go and do everything you can? What does that involve?
It involves connecting with people like Bobby Kelly, people like you guys.
Hold for applause.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And getting connected with local officials who are pro-housing. And the caveat, and also, all politicians, 95% say, yeah, we're pro-housing. We need more homes built. We need to do everything we can to get homes built. The reality is only 50% of them really are. Like, everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, homes, of course. But who's really going to do everything they can to get housing built? And so that just came with connecting with friends. It starts with your circle. You know, we can take that to like, you know, your business as well. Like if you're just trying to get something going, talk to the people you know. And so educating people, and a lot of the issues when it comes to the development side of it, the YIMBY, NIMBY, especially on the NIMBY side, most of it just comes to educating people. Most people aren't aware that it's this difficult. And so when people are like, why is there a housing shortage? Well, when local municipalities and state governments make it as hard as possible for developers to do anything, that's why homes don't get built. When they make the cost, you know, extravagantly high, when they say, hey, we need X amount, minimum amount of affordable housing for this development, whether it be 30 to 40% of this entire development needs to be affordable housing. Some developers, the majority of developers, can't afford to do that because it just doesn't pencil out. And so developers aren't going to build projects for free. That just doesn't make any sense. They need to make, you know, some profit. And I don't know when in history it became a thing that developers were evil, greedy, terrible people. And I don't know who created that narrative, but they're not. Like, developers create and build communities. City planners, city managers, working hand in hand with them, do everything they can to make it better. And so I appreciate that with the Tompkins, with Covelope, with the Zappis family in Atascadero. These are local companies and local residents who get to build and shape what their community looks like. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
So you've got these local municipalities who are saying, you know, X percent needs to be affordable housing, and you've got developers who it doesn't pencil out. So they're at a stalemate.
Yes.
So how do you break that? Like, and why do some projects like the Dana Reserve, why do those pencil out? What happened? What changed?
It depends. So the developer, and I'll go to what Don Ortiz, like the county supervisor representing San Luis and part of 5 cities, said. She talked in her arguments, in her closing statement, when she was going to, before she voted yes on the project, that a lot of developers regarding the Dana Reserve, looking at it, are like, this project's too good. And the bar is being set so high for developers to have to do this. When it comes to over $3 million in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, almost 200 deed-restricted housing units for Lucia Mar faculty and staff. That's huge. Sidebar, huge proponent. I believe we should have deed-restricted housing for every single teacher in San Luis Obispo County. That's necessary and it's mandatory. And I think we're going to see that probably over the next 5 years, but we'll get to that later. So it was the developer. The developer was able to make the project so good that it was hard to say no to, which sadly 2 supervisors did vote no on it. But if
what are their names? I'm just kidding.
Okay. Don't get him started. I've been down this
that's
one.
That's a couple hours. And so it was the developer being able to get that. So when you see a lot of these developments that are proposed, and we see it on, you know, KSBY and the Tribune, proposed development, you know, here and there happening. And then you're like, and then, you know, 5 years pass, and you're like, that development never happened. Why? Because the developer had to give up on it. Nick Tompkins, the developer for the Dana Reserve, he's never quit on any project ever. Like, this has been a 5+ year process for him to do that. Agonizing process. He dealt with personal attacks on him, his family, anyone that supported it. You know, I get into the brunt of that as well because, you know, anytime you want to support a developer, I get accosted for everything. You know, I get accused of everything imaginable, which is just nuts. Like, take a breath, like, touch the grass. We need housing. I have no idea why that's controversial. Like, do you not have kids or family? Like, do you not think about tomorrow? And so that's kind of the thing when you get involved in this is you're dealing with people who, one, aren't educated about the process and truly understand the difficulty of getting housing built. And they need to be thinking 10, 20 years down the road. It's the same for every elected official.
I'm gonna jump in here for just a second.
Do it.
Because we have like a pretty wide range of audience, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we can all relate to like, hey, I've been driving past this beautiful scene, this hill or this valley or whatever, and now it's got houses in it or it's got like whatever is happening. I mean, I think about my parents' property. They live out in Templeton. It's beautiful. There's this oak tree right on this hill, and they're putting a house right there. And I'm like, oh, man. And then I go, I love that view. And that view's kind of messed up now. But I go, but it's more important to create another door or another house for someone to move into. And it does take kind of, I think as citizens of this world we live in, it does take stepping back from like what we want sometimes and looking at society and be like, society needs more than what I want with just a view and how I feel about that view or something, or whatever it is that it is for you. It could be different things besides that, but it's like the traffic. Oh man, I'm gonna have to wait an extra whatever. I think they actually have really good traffic studies here, but traffic might be a little bit more impacted, or they're gonna add stop signs or a stoplight or whatever. It's like, we got to get over that. It's hard. I know that people get frustrated, but it's like, you have to step back and be like, man, society, we need this development. And I just wanted to say that to our listeners, because I know that there's listeners that are like, and that, maybe they're getting a little frustrated hearing, but it's like stepping back and thinking about, actually what he's saying is really right. And I actually need to try to have a different perspective, or even like consider a different perspective and come to the table and think about it. I like let's step in the grass, or however you said that. It's like, let's get grounded here for a second, get emotions out of it, and like kind of just talk openly.
Well, it's interesting. You could. I think this applies on just about any topic, political or otherwise. I think most often you could say we all agree on the goal. We disagree on how to get there, and that's where I think these kinds of conversations are really helpful. You mentioned when we started that with the Dana Reserve project, there was a few people who you thought had really good pushback. What were those? Like, if you could steel man the other side's argument, what would you say? Like, what are the really reasonable issues with these kinds of things?
So what we always hear, and they're called NIMBYs for a reason. So, I support the project. I think that project's great. I think we need housing. I don't think that project should be right there, though. Okay, well, where should the project be? Oh, over here. And so let's restart the entire 5-year process again. The reality is we can't afford to do that as a society. We can't afford to wait 5 more years. The issue with, and another thing, I live in Paso Robles. I think Paso Robles is the greatest place on earth. I'm going to be there until the day I die. A lot of things we heard was like, oh yeah, this project, fantastic, but this project should be in Paso, because we're building a ton in Paso. We have 5,000 units in waiting to be built in Paso over the next, let's call it a decade. The issue with all the units we're building in Paso, which they're coming and it's fantastic, we needed those homes 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The middle class in this county, in this area, is dying and shrinking. They're all moving to Tennessee, to Texas, to Florida, everywhere where you see, the migration out of California to go for whatever reasons, political costs, this and that. But it's affordable to buy a home there. And then, they talk about, okay, whether it's the environmental impact of building homes here, but they don't realize that for every person that can't afford to live here, they're going to move to Texas or Tennessee, this and that. They're going to buy a home for half the cost of what it costs to live here, but that home's going to be twice the size. And their footprint, their green footprint, is going to be 2 to 3 times higher than if they were living here. And so that argument, in my opinion, is out the door. And it's something that just people need to take a step back when they talk about the environmental impacts, which we do amazing studies to do it, to make
over
our
the top.
energy over the top. Yeah, over the top.
Yeah.
And so they need to realize that if these people leave this area, their carbon footprint's going to be higher wherever they go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of it is like, yeah, that's great. Just I don't want it impacting me, which is a very human response of like, I want what's best for everybody, but like, I want to keep my own, comforts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does have to land somewhere eventually.
So I'm still curious why the location. Is it just because it's literally like their backyard? We don't want it right here, put it up in Paso. And anyway, so is that...
There is a large group of neighbors that they were supporting the project, and they have said via email to the county years ago, we will support this project if you close this road that will connect to the project. We want this road closed due to the traffic in it. And so if you close that road, we're going to support it. And if you don't, we will fight endlessly to make sure the project is stopped. And that's where the Napomo Action Committee, the group that fights against the project, that's how they were created.
It seems like development needs a PR firm.
Yes.
Like marketing, which is what you're doing, which is like, I get that. Like, because when you say there's going to be a development coming, I think immediately people have preconceived ideas of what it means, what it will do, which may or may not be true, but trying to convey like this is the benefit of doing this. Sure, there's challenges and complications with anything we try to do growth wise, but It sounds like that's a lot of what you're trying to do, right?
We are a PR firm
Yeah.
pretty much for developers. And
Yeah.
people say that to us as like an insult. And I'm like,
No, it's
no,
good.
I'm a proud fan of developers.
Yeah.
I will do everything I can to make sure.
Because
a house
developers
is
are
developed.
developing.
Yeah,
They're
developing.
not their skill
building a
set.
community.
Yeah,
and
right.
So people need to do this. And if you talk with people who are very involved either in development or planning this and that, not the most savvy when it comes to just communication in certain ways, because they're absolute nerds. No insult to them, but that's just who they are. They're nerds when it comes to development and planning. And so if we can take the arm of, our main goal is to bring developers and locally elected officials and people who are in, county planning staff and city planning staff together to have a common goal, then supported by the grassroots, our organization, us citizens, to do everything we can to build development.
That's great.
Let's nerd out on that for a second.
Yeah.
So, and you get city planners sometimes get really excited about what they're doing. I mean, most of them do that I've actually experienced here locally. Where do you see that going in the county as far as development in the next 10, 20 years? Like, what are you excited about? What do you think the landscape's going to look like? What kind of pumps you up?
We're moving in the right direction. So Grover Beach is one of the most pro-growth cities in the entire county, and I love it. And their entire staff is incredible. All 3 or 4 of them or so, but they're all just incredibly engaged.
They are.
And
They're
I
great.
appreciate. They just sent out a survey, a week or 2 ago, I believe, pretty much saying, "Hey, what do you want to see?" And I think that's important to get engagement from the
totally.
county of what do you think the process is fair. And one of the questions was anything that's 10 units or under. Do you think that should go to the planning commission, or do you think that should be handled by city staff? And the issue is so much of this stuff goes to planning commission or to city council when it should be a staff issue. The staff should be able to do it. These are very smart, competent people, and we should be able to trust them and rely on them to make it the best deal possible for them. So how I see it, we are building. So between the Dana Reserve, which is going to be about 1,400 units, and the 5,000 or so units that are going to come into Paso, we just supported and it got approved unanimously the new Dove Creek development in Atascadero, an additional 100 units. We're kind of dabbling in Santa Barbara County, Santa Maria specifically, with Richard Ranch, which is about 400 or so units there, and we're hoping to expand further more into Santa Barbara County, because Santa Barbara County and the city specifically, they have a huge NIMBYism problem. But that's also, as I'm finding out, is more just that they aren't informed enough to really understand the huge crisis we're facing. So at the SLO County Economic Forecast at Madonna Inn, last year or earlier this year, they always have the economist come and speak. And he said the 3 things that we need to do to make sure SLO County is economically viable are multifamily, multifamily, multifamily. And so we need to build multifamily.
Yeah.
Like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
Just continue to do that. Because generationally, it's changed a lot. Not everyone wants, the white picket fence and backyard. It's just a generation thing. There are people who are fine with an apartment or a condo or a townhome. It's just, the different style. Like when our parents, were growing up, and our grandparents, it was all about bigger and better, 2,500, 3,500 square feet homes. And now people are fine with 12 or 1,500 square foot, 3-bed, 2 baths. And so that's changed. And we just need to change when it comes to that. And I speak out at Cal Poly construction management class every now and then. And, I give my pitch this and that. They raise their hand and they're like, "So are you saying there's just going to be multifamily everywhere?" I'm like, well, let's fast forward to 2,300. Like, let's fast forward 1 to 200 years and what it's going to look like when there are 10, 14 billion people in the world and there's 400 to 500 million. We're almost at 400 million Americans. When we're at 500 or 600 million Americans, how are we going to house those people? We need to build up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
We're not building more land. And when it comes kind of, when you were talking about, the tree losing it, 10% of all land in San Luis Obispo County is protected open space. And that's not including the, million acres of the Carrizo Plain. So the natural beauty we have, and we all agree this is one of the most beautiful places on earth, that's always going to be here.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, it seems like not every development opportunity, though, is created equal. So some of these are amazing. Some of them might, have more negative impacts. So what is your process with going through, do you support all the building no matter what, or you sign on board and you want to, Gary Keller says we should have a clash of ideas, not a clash of ego. So is that okay, I'm going to educate myself and get involved for the better? Or what's your process as far as just...
So what separates us from other housing organizations, we will support any and all housing project. Of course, we want to see, more multifamily and stuff. So, for example, the 22 luxury homes, I believe, that are being built in Avila Beach. That was sent to us. Some people were like, hey, we want your 2 cents on this. We're like, we support any and all housing. It's a ladder. We believe housing's a ladder. Anytime someone's moving into a $2 million home, they're either downsizing or they're vacating. So you're just moving. You're giving more opportunity to other people. So, of course, we would have loved to see, 100 or 200 multifamily units over there. Just a beautiful development. But we will support any and all projects because we're going to support any developer with a vision who wants to get something done, no matter what.
I mean, I just don't, and where he's talking about, just for our audience, it's like this beautiful vacant, and there's no way that the community would have passed, I think, multifamily there. It would have been impossible. What they're proposing and what's going to be is like these kind of estate houses. So, that was more easily, I would think, passed. But I think multifamily is interesting. Like you go into the cities, I think there has to be some like rezoning of commercial and things like that to allow, and I think the general plans are moving that direction. There's a lot of pressure for them to move that direction from the state. And I think the idea of like staff approval is great. I mean, I also think that there's the Dove Creek and then there's the Del Rio one that passed into Atascadero as well. And so you see like, and I think was the Del Rio, was that staff or was that city council?
That was city council.
So that was city council as well, but it was a smaller meeting.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So, it's interesting to watch. And the Dove Creek one got toned down a bit from what they were doing to this new iteration. I think it's going to be a fantastic kind of community project. And you have, it makes these cities. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that developers make the city. And you have like, you can go back to like the Irvine company. It's like they made Irvine what Irvine is because they had a plan and they wanted to do it. And you go to look at Atascadero, like the Zappis family, those guys are fantastic. What they've done at Atascadero, they're making that city.
Well, it's not just about homes either. It's like you create a world in which people can actually live here. They're going to bring their ideas and small businesses, all that stuff. The whole community is going to flourish because you provided a home for somebody to like at a reasonable cost to live here. So there's a ton of kind of added value to housing. It's not just the home. Yeah. Do you feel, I know this is a little bit subjective and you don't have a crystal ball, but do you feel like we're developing and building at an appropriate pace now, or
we're getting there?
Okay.
It's unfortunate it had to take this long to get there because, like I said, we needed these 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we are on pace to get there.
What do you
believe?
This is the crystal ball part. What year? No. When do you think we'll catch up, or we'll see the results that we want to see
locally?
Yeah.
If we continue on pace to see, we are seeing more city councils and planning commissions vote yes on almost everything that gets proposed to them. I'm hoping a decade.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a long vid. And then, it comes down to these things will get the Beechwood development in Paso Robles. That thing has been approved forever. And we have no idea when that's breaking ground.
Why?
Yeah. Cost to do it. Yeah.
Does more development make more development cheaper? Like the more we develop, does it make future development projects cheaper somehow? Or
yes and no. No, not really. Well, it can with how much you can charge for the end product itself, because that just goes back to supply and demand. Like you can look at like Nashville, Tennessee. So Nashville has gone above and beyond on building luxury multifamily and luxury condos. Like that's where their focus has been. And even though those are luxury, the cost of living in Nashville has gone down. It goes back to the ladder. More people buying this, it's going to open up more opportunities. But as long as the red tape is there to make it harder for people to develop and the cost of it, the entire cost of developing, 50 to 70% of it is the process. It's not the sticks and stones that build the home. It's the process itself. It's everything you need to go through with the city, with the county, with the state.
So that's what we're saying. If you push it down a few levels, you can...
Yeah, then it becomes easier.
Really, 60 to... Do you say 60 to 70%?
Oh, yeah. It's an unreal number. It's an unbelievable amount of money and fees
just
that
to,
have to be
just
done.
to start.
Just to start. Before,
Why does anyone want to do that?
I know.
That's
God
what a
bless
lot of
the
developers say
developers.
to me. They're like, man, if I could go back 5 or so years. Yeah, but it's for the betterment of the community. And so that's why I love them. God bless them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the when you look at I like the analogy of like the rocket taking off, the space shuttle. Like to get the first 6 seconds of that thing taking off, it uses the same amount of fuel it takes to orbit the whole Earth after it's out. That initial getting off the ground and the concept and getting it approved is so much effort and energy. And you have to have a stomach for it.
It's the hardest part. It's the entire process. Yeah.
So what does winning look like then? Do you have a we've arrived kind of milestone, or
I got accosted at a county board of supervisor meeting about a month or so ago by a neighbor of another project we were supporting.
wasn't Jeff?
No,
Wasn't Jeff.
no,
Okay,
it wasn't
okay,
Jeff.
okay.
Wasn't Jeff. I don't think so.
That'd be awkward.
Yeah, his hair wasn't that
Okay,
good.
good.
And this gentleman, I give my public comment, and I'm just hanging out. I want to watch the vote, and this gentleman comes out, and not hey, how are you? It's who starts it off with who's funding you guys, and we are just a community organization. There's no funding. We don't have a bank account. Nothing. We're just trying to organize people. And then he says, what are your guys' goals? And I'm like, my personal goal is to make sure every planning commissioner, city council member, and board of supervisor in this entire county is pro-development and pro-housing. And our goal is to make sure every single person who is an elected official and who is named to a planning commission is, I'm pro-housing, I'm pro-development. I want to work with developers. I don't hate developers. I'm not going to make your life difficult. I'm going to do what's best for the community and to get things
I
done.
love
So
that.
that's our goal. Yeah.
You should have been like, have you seen that TV series Narcos?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we're funded by them.
That's,
We make people like, no, just kidding.
Jeff just picking fights.
He's all talk.
All talk,
He's
yeah.
a softie.
Total
He's a
softie.
softie.
He would have been like, "What? I'm not with them.
No.
Give me your green shirt."
Yeah, when I was in the oil industry, we had to go. I mean, I often to like city council stuff to support the only people supporting it, right? The project, and you're like these people just got bussed in, like these anti-oil people, and you're like, this is crazy, and they're just all loud and obnoxious, and they're all wearing the whatever shirt. It's like, man, it's just like to shut down something that's super good for our community. I mean, they shut down like pipelines and stuff like that. It's like nuts.
Education, though. I mean, I think that's fair because honestly, when I first had a discussion with you, I had talked to a few other realtors that were also like, yeah, but we don't want this area to change. And yeah, we want it to be this way for our kids. And it's like, what a privilege to have the ability to own a home already that your parents gave to you or that you
Totally.
happened to buy because of their fortunate situation. And to be able to sit in your, in your spot and say that. But
Yeah.
what about, And so I think I think you do have to be able to relate to people enough to educate them and to see where they're coming from, because it's not that they're negative or bad. It's like I grew up here. I was born and raised here, and I love this area, and I love driving past the oak tree. Like it's a part of, it's a feeling. So it's fair to be able to, kind of level with people and have those conversations. I appreciate you've handled that well. 'Cause I'm like, wait, but what?
Well, I think the other thing too that it's like, I love that you're doing this with development, but I look at like industry, and I've talked to people in different industries, and they're like, our industry is dying. They're not issuing permits. They're not allowing this. Like, we are and not to be like too political, but we are pushing jobs like crazy out of California. And like, I mean, I had a call this week from one of my dear friends, and this impacts people that are able to live here who I worked with. And he's like, dude, I'm the last of two. I'm the last three standing. And he's like, and they're kind of hinting that we're not going to have jobs any longer. And, kind of like in that, this sucks. And it's like, what do I do next?
it's the service industry jobs that suffer the most.
The
Waiters,
yeah.
waitresses, people that work at hotels.
Yeah.
The people that like, you don't think about like, okay, why is, this restaurant short staffed? Well,
Yeah.
it's hard to make a living here, making, whether it be minimum wage plus tips, this and that, and then trying to afford to live here.
Totally.
Yeah. Like when you look at and talking with people who have come and supported our organization. So be like, okay, we can go down the rabbit hole, but like, hey, cost of living is X. And then if you have kids, the cost of childcare is almost the exact same cost as housing. So people just need to.
It is.
Yeah,
It's actually true.
It's crazy.
Like, sorry, Travis.
No,
so
go ahead.
So like, even like Diablo, and I'm so glad it's not shutting down yet. And you look at like how that will impact the income in our area, the high income jobs like that they have at Diablo are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, head of household jobs that allows people to live here and enjoy life. When that goes away, then it's going to impact the service industry. It'll impact the housing market. It's like that, it goes away forever. And I'm concerned about stuff like that. I think it's like we want to keep those high paying jobs as much as possible in this area. And I know people are anti-nuclear or whatever, but it's like it's been operating very safely for years. So I think just in general, when we get these perceptions, and I think as society we think, okay, yeah, that like it'd be great if we just had a energy source that was, just from nothing. But that's not the case yet. And so like we gotta protect, I think, our economy, and encourage building, and encourage development, and encourage new industry in our area. Otherwise, I think that our area will like never really be what it could be.
100% agree. And if we bring housing here, we will bring industry here.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate. St. Louis Obispo has a $3 billion industry in Cal Poly. So that helps.
That's amazing.
A ton. But if we want to bring the Amazons here, if we want to bring SpaceX here, if we want to bring all of these different things that have been talked about or whispered about, we need housing to make it possible.
So good.
When we're talking about affordable housing, I'm still thinking about what are we trying to accomplish? Like I think June to June, year over year, we saw like 6% appreciation, and I think 40-year average is somewhere around 10%, somewhere in there maybe.
Yeah.
Is the goal to say like, we just want it kind of to mirror inflation or something like that? Like when we say affordable housing, because prices are going to like over time continue to go up. Are we just saying, yeah, no, we get that. It's not like we want home values to go down. We just want the increase to be manageable. Is that what we're saying?
We want it to be manageable and not continuing to increase, during the, peak, 2021, 22, we were seeing like 25, 30% appreciation.
Crazy.
Insane numbers. So yeah, we want housing to pretty much just balance the amount of demand. That's all. Supply
and demand. It's like economics 101.
We want the supply to equal the demand.
Yes.
That's all we want. And that's all we need. And that will make the cost of living just reasonable.
Reasonable. We just want reasonable.
Yeah, even less of a gap. I'll take less of a gap.
Yeah. It's really hard. I mean, we were just talking with Mayor Karen about we've got kids that we want to be able to stay. And I always wonder, does every generation say this? It's like, well, when I bought my home, my parents we paid $34,000 for our home. It's like, okay. And now we pay whatever we're paying, $880 or whatever the median sales price is. Are our kids going to say,
it is different though when you look at what that was compared to what people were making.
Yes,
it was way more even than it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
totally true.
It's hard to live.
It's actually very skewed now.
Yeah. Okay.
Man,
well, you're doing the Lord's work there, Michael.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. Amen. Amen, brother.
Yeah, brother. I love that, and I love that you could just answer like, "Oh, we're just gathering people that care about this."
Yeah,
yeah, and we are just making them aware of it. And so when you see, everyone, let's just say pretty much the group that is affected most by it is everyone, 40 and under, pretty much, and them just being like, God, it's so hard to buy a home, to find a decent price rental. Why is this? Well, no one builds homes. And they make it really hard to do it.
Yeah.
And so as long as that continues, it's going to continue to make it impossible for people to survive.
But it's encouraging hearing there's places like Grover Beach and
Grover,
others
Paso, and Tascadero's completely changed a lot of their zoning to make development a lot easier. From when the city manager and city planner are like, we want developers to come to us first before anything else, and we want to work with them hand in hand. That's huge.
Well, I'm glad you're encouraged because that's a big deal. I want to end on a positive note. It sounds like trajectory-wise, we're going the right way. We just got to keep it up. So that's great. All right, Michael. Time to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
We ask these 4 questions to every guest. So this is the hardest part of the interview, maybe. Okay, question number 1. What's your favorite book, movie, or TV show?
Can I answer all 3?
You can please do.
Okay. I'm a huge history guy, so anything written by David McCullough, who's the greatest American historian ever. John Adams, his book on John Adams was phenomenal. His book on Truman was amazing. Going back to kind of our organization, my favorite story in the John Adams book was a young Ralph Waldo Emerson. He just graduated Harvard, and he went and visited John Adams. And he just asked John Adams, and this was towards the end of Adams' life. It's like 1826. And he just asked Adams, what do you think of America now compared to when you founded America? And John Adams is my favorite founding father by a country mile. And John Adams said, I wish Americans had the ambition to excel. And that's just one of my favorite quotes ever. Not excel as, wealth or power, this and that, just the ability to be better. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I wish Americans today felt that exact same thing, just the ambition to excel and be better, bring industry, bring intelligence, be a great father and a mother, and just excel in every aspect of your life. So anything David McCullough.
It's pretty good, man. Okay.
Shows, got The West Wing all day, and then Seinfeld. Bobby knows I'm a huge Larry David fan. And so there's that one. Favorite movie, I'd go with It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Okay.
Yeah, 1964.
No clue. Okay.
Yeah.
No clue.
I love doing these though because I'm always like going home and like, oh, I have something to
Oh,
watch.
yeah,
now.
exactly.
I know what I'm doing
Yeah.
today.
Dr. Strangelove. It's a combination. Yeah.
All right.
Well, who's the most influential person in your life?
My dad, by
Cool.
a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even close. Yeah, I wanted to be a sportscaster when I was a kid, and
Oh,
my dad
awesome.
was a sportscaster, and so
Aw.
there's that.
That's
That's
awesome,
sweet.
man.
Yeah.
I love that. Good
Your
answer.
Dad's a good guy.
Yeah, thank you. I
Okay, my
agree.
turn. My turn. Describe your ideal day on the Central Coast. I feel like I'm going to be in this day because we hang out. We have a good time.
We do. We have a great time.
You better include her now.
I absolutely will.
Yeah.
Started the podcast.
The podcast in the morning,
this is
starting that out. Then, I love being by the beach, even though Passo's not on the beach. But I have to say, being in Pismo, I love hanging out by the pool at Dolphin Bay and the cliffs. Phenomenal. And then if I can smoke a cigar on the beach, and then that's a perfect day for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Do we talk about food?
We did.
we can talk about food.
We usually
Please talk about food.
always
We can't
talk
let
about
this
food.
question go without.
Like favorite
Yeah.
restaurants?
Just-
Yeah, like, where would you eat?
So
We need to-
cigars and a steak. So my favorite restaurant in the county is Bistro Laurent in Paso. So French, phenomenal. They
Haven't
make really
been there.
amazing filet.
My brother used to work there.
Yeah,
Really?
It's
Yeah.
a great spot.
Let's go.
I love it. Yeah, well, let's do it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm down.
Yeah,
any
how
day.
have we not? We
How
need
can-
to do the Paso tour.
Passo's
We gotta
Passo's
get
where
you
it's
to
at.
Paso.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good day.
A phenomenal day.
What kind of cigar are you smoking?
I like a good Cohiba, just basic. I was in Vegas 2 weekends ago, and so I always go to the Overlook Lounge at the Wynn, and I just sit there and I smoke 2 to 3 cigars. And so it depends. I always start with a stronger, darker cigar, probably not a full Churchill size, but it's a good length. And then I just go down, because
Shorter and shorter.
I want to be able to feel stuff and not be, just like times 10 on my voice the next week. And then I just go smoother and lighter.
Bro, you're a
I had
man.
no idea what you just said. I don't support.
I'm smiling
smoking.
and nodding.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah,
is my
don't
idol.
act like you
And
know
so,
when he's
yeah,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Me too.
Absolutely, definitely.
Samesies.
Yeah, all day.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I do smoke.
No, Travis.
This is not on topic
We'll
at
edit
all.
this out.
But I started smoking a pipe when I was like 14 because I'm 80 years old
You are.
in the
I can see
inside.
that.
Nothing
I can
beats
see
a
that.
tobacco pipe.
I know,
Nothing.
man.
I got
Just
one
the
for my
best.
18th
Like
birthday,
100.
and
Yeah, thanks.
yeah, true to tobacco, like
Yeah.
pipe tobacco.
Mhm, that's the way, man.
Heaven.
It's it's a whole thing though.
It's
like
different.
it's a big
Yeah.
to do,
It
and
is.
so
It's a
cigars
pain.
are
Yeah.
easier,
Much easier.
different.
Yeah.
But you guys just go away. Me and
Yeah,
Michael
I
are
mean,
talking
we're
here.
having a
Lock
moment. We're
in,
having a
buddy.
moment,
Lock
yeah.
in.
I don't think this is in my future.
First
for
cigar I
sure.
ever smoked was a backwoods cigar, and I was like,
Oh
I think,
lordy,
I think I'm gonna throw up. Yeah.
those are not great.
First ever cigar I ever smoked was a Cuban. It was right
Wow.
after the embargo was lifted. I had
Man.
a friend that went to Cuba.
I feel
They
like
brought back
maybe your
cigars.
family
So there's
had
no
money.
going back.
Yeah, there's no, yeah.
Yeah, you have
Nothing
very
beats
different.
a true Cuban
Yeah,
cigar.
his dad gave it. It's a Templeton thing.
Yeah.
yeah. Jeff's dad gave him a backwoods.
I was like 9 years old.
Yeah, he's like, smoke this.
All right,
You wanna be a
I
man?
feel like
Kentucky
it's my
right there.
responsibility to,
Okay.
to get us out of this hole.
Okay.
So, Mike, tell us the best way to get a hold of you. How
Best-
do people contact
Best way to get a hold of us is Generation Build CC as in Central Coast at gmail.com. I will throw my cell number out too, 805-305-8383.
you? I don't feel special anymore.
And then
Dang it. Everyone has it now.
Gave it to everyone.
that's tough. I'll get a new number.
You
for
told me
Um,
I'm the only one who had it,
This
Michael.
is just my burner phone. It's my burner phone. And then Generation Build on Instagram. Yeah.
Sweet.
Generation Build. Okay.
Love it. Michael, nice work. Thanks
you.
so much for
Thank you,
being
guys.
here. It was a pleasure having you. We appreciate all the work you're doing.
was fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.